So with our handsome Mr. Zeus, hi Zeusy. So he's back again. I'm so excited he's back and rocking some doggy day school time. So we're just gonna warm up with a couple little, again, typical find its, just get him in the groove. It's been a little bit of time since he's been, which again, no worries, life is crazy. So right now we're just practicing having him orient obviously from the environment and then back to me, and then searching for those snacks is a great way to get some energy out. Nice job, without me having to, again, move as much, which is also exciting. Ready? Nice, great check-in. So obviously this can also help with, orientation to you, but also create some helpful skills for down the road. I know we mentioned like this could be helpful for recalls, working loose leash walking, a lot of moments where they may have to reorient to you from the environment. Ready? We'll get a little sit. Yes, nice job. He's only grown a little bit, but I love that his sweaters have also grown with him. Obviously not, but bigger boy sizes. So with our handsome guy, Lenny, we might get a little sit. Gorgeous. So if he does sort of run at you kind of quickly, again, he's not, of course, trying to potentially blow past you or into you. So I would recommend, if he's a little too jazzed, do some find its off to the side of you when he's heading your direction. So the benefit to that is it will slow him down. It will also get him to, like, for example, pause right here near you for a few extra moments, and then you could reevaluate, do I need to leash him up? Do I need to give him a break? Is he being responsive? And if not, maybe should we take a moment to leash him and use maybe a long line? Oh my God, chewing and running is so hard. But find its are definitely one of my favorites because it does allow your babe for some extra movement. And sometimes if, let's say, for example, I know you were saying he still gets very excited about novel dogs and people as well. And when people come to the home, he's kind of a lot of big boy to handle. Nice, good job, Sarah. So remember too, anytime you're going to be having, let's say, company's coming, or situations where you could, again, turn it into like a learning moment would be really beneficial. So obviously for us, we understand when people come over, they're friendly, they're here to come visit. For dogs, if anything's kind of out of the ordinary, it can seem either a little overwhelming or, for example, a little challenging, where maybe it's more stressful than fun. This concept of having, for us, friends over still equals a potential stranger to them. Rhodesians can be standoffish with new people, and they're meant to be more, again, not territorial, but know when there's something novel in their bubble. So this is where for Mr. Z, even though he's a very, very friendly guy, oh yeah, take a break, sir. So even though he's a really friendly guy, we want to make sure that how he's engaging is in a way that we want him to keep getting better at. Nice job. So just hanging out with me, he's doing a nice job being a wild monkey. Hello there, sir. You're a goofball. So let's say you're having company come to visit and your babe has been practicing maybe on gear. I would recommend, whenever possible, is if, let's say, the kitchen or the bubble in which they enter is a very challenging zone, you may want to start off with some higher, motivation for him in the sense of chews or lick items or sort of, let's say, toys that keep him occupied. Nice shake off, sir. So that way your babe could, for example, as company's coming over, you could have him in another little section of the home and then bring the people into the environment, let them get cozy themselves. And then as he's decompressing and getting a little bit more comfortable with the novelty that is the presence of the new odor, the hearing of the new people talking, and that way he's not going right into the main zone where everybody's hanging out with so much energy that he doesn't quite know what to do with himself. Because obviously being a high energy kind of guy, when something new happens, it's so exciting, but he doesn't quite know where to put all that oomph. So like right now, the reason I was doing some find its as I was blabbing is it gave him something to do other than be maybe bored or a little bit bummed that I'm just blabbing. And of course he says, maybe I'd like my sweater off. Maybe we'll make him naked for the next video. He's too cute. That's a very nice floppy noodle moment here. So if, let's say, he's now gotten a little bit more comfortable and the family members or whoever it might be is in the other section, you may want to go and practice some of those in and outs of that little zone. So I know we worked a little bit with like U-turns. We practiced a little bit with some find its. So the benefit of getting your puppy up and wiggling while you're doing something off on the back burner is you're still giving him an outlet other than that thing. So the problem with going right to the destination, which is that new person in the home, is that when he gets there, he probably doesn't know what to do with himself anyway. And if the person itself is the main reinforcer, like the thing he really wants to go and explore and check in with, we want to give him outlets that are more appropriate than, let's say, bombarding our friends or family. He is a big gentleman, so we want to make sure that he, by accident, doesn't bombard someone and either knock them down or hurt them or whatever it might be. So obviously a lot of folks would be like, well, just get them to sit or get them to down as like people are entering. And the problem with that is, remember how being stationary for him, just like most adolescents, is going to be really challenging. It's kind of, again, like bringing your kids to a playground and we were going to go romp and have a great time, but now you arrive after a 30-minute drive and you have them sit for another 10 minutes before they can go play. So the problem with that is most of them would have a really challenging time with all the excitement and the buildup of the playground to now have to wait even longer to get to it. So we may find for him other venues or other outlets, maybe play with somebody else that's maybe in the living room. We want to be a little bit careful that what we're doing is not revving the engine so far that he kind of disconnects between his brain and his body. So what I mean by that is, if, let's say, when company comes over, he gets really excited and we go right into like tugging or we go right into playing fetch. The problem with that is sometimes then more arousal equals more play, which equals more excitement again. So you'd want to be careful that play doesn't turn into like a woohoo where they're then very overexcited and they don't know how to come back from it. Play is a wonderful venue to do as a redirection or to do this instead of that. But we just make sure that we're not, again, pushing them over the edge. So like right now, he's doing a great job because we did a little bit of some movement. I also had him doing a little bit of play with the flirt pole. So if you know you're having company over, sometimes meeting your pup's needs before the company can be very helpful. I know the cruddy weather is coming soon, but this is where dog sports might be another great venue. So I'm not saying you have to go out and do everything under the sun, but remember that maybe doing canine nose work, which is searching and like detection of certain odors, and you can do it for fun and you can also do it for, competing and winning titles, but don't feel you must. You could also, there's a really fun sport called barn hunt, which is where your babes are out and you have them working in a controlled environment with rats that are technically in a container that they're very comfortable being in. They've been sort of conditioned and trained to be, comfortable in those little bubbles. And then what you do is there's someone that's normally running the barn hunt and they would hide the rodents somewhere in the barn. And there's typically hay bales, and in the hay bales, it's a little bit of like a maze. And then throughout the hay, you would then have to have your dog searching with their sniffer, again, for that rodent. Oh, did your jacket flap up? How funny. There we go. So when your dog is then searching, a lot of times when dogs are using their sniffers and using their typical dog senses, they're going to get nicely tired because they're both mentally and physically working in a way that makes sense to them. Sometimes simply only doing sits or working downs, even though basic obedience and these skills are great, if your dog doesn't have a dog-centric outlet, a lot of times these behaviors aren't going to meet their needs. And a lot of times they're still going to fizzle over and explode from those stationary positions or that attempt of loose leash walking. So remember, activity that involves both his body and his mind are going to be really helpful, especially when you're dealing with an adolescent who's going into, again, young adulthood slowly. Because I know he's a bit over a year now, I believe. So still a teenager till about 2. Some pups still rock it till about 2.5. But then again, when he hits adulthood, you may find because of maturity and hopefully some of the things we've worked on, his transition from young adult into adulthood will be a smoother transition. Oh my goodness, so tired. He's like, oh, gotta just check on my toesies, huh? So if, for example, when company does come over, he did a great job with those puzzle toys or had some enrichment prior to that, like with some of those dog-centric games or activities outside, then he might be more comfortable and not almost sort of at the edge of woohoo because he's feeling a little bit more fatigued. We don't want him so tired. Excuse me, seltzer's a bad idea. We don't want him so tired that he becomes overtired. So obviously a tired dog to a certain extent is nice because their needs are met. But an overtired dog, where maybe they've had too much stimulus and not enough rest, can actually create the same overstimulation that you'd get from a dog that's had absolutely no practice. So you may want to, again, start to figure out where your happy norm is for him and what you guys can attain comfortably, and then go from there. Obviously, using gear in the home, practicing with each other is really crucial. So if he has a hard time, even with family members coming in and getting really excited, those would be places I would start and build in some more of those situations. I will, though, for the classmates, I'm going to send along a few other video resources other than us, discussing and chatting and then working through your puppies. So that way you can start to build in some of these other options too for added information and success. Good job. So we'll do another little find it for the handsome guy. Nice. I think Mr. W says, I must have heard a funny noise in the building, because again, this is their very first day for like Mr. W. It's his first day in the program, and same thing for Miss S. So Sophie. So we have Sophie and Winston, 2 littles, and we will have another pupperoo that just couldn't make it today join next week as well. Nice. So, but we're just waiting on a fecal sample to make sure he's good to go before coming into the classroom setting. Nice. Ready? Nice job, Mr. Z. So obviously too, working on like your loose leash walking, working through some of these different skill sets are going to be helpful, because then when company comes over, you could use some of this orientation to you and focus, hopefully, as the company's there. But forcing Mr. Z to sometimes go into a sit or trying to physically hold him back might be, again, why he's fizzling over near the distraction. I do recommend, if something's really hard for your babe, is to have more distance between them and the thing. So obviously, as I'm just blabbing, we're just working a little bit with some of our loose leash walking. We might work a little front behavior. Nice, good job. And I'm going to see if I can send him back to my side again. If he works on the left or the right, feel free to let me know. If he does both, great. So, but if you're, particular to one side, let me know so we can make sure, and he and I are matching with our green. But let me know so I can make sure I can keep things consistent for him. Nice job, sir. But we will build in more of the different skills and, scenarios that you were saying you're having more difficulty with. But it's so very typical for this age group to have a hard time with reining it in when they feel that big feeling. Because, he says, I'm going to go eat my chew toy now. Because for a lot of the babes, their brain and their body are still under construction. So nice check-in, Mr. Z. So if you are really struggling with certain things, maybe at times preventing the rehearsal is better than trying to work through it if he doesn't have the foundation to do well with it. So he has to go grab a little drink. So remember that about 75% of your training, especially in the beginning, is more management. So preventing the rehearsal of him being successful in plowing into grandma, or his success in bombarding his other older sibling. So I know for a lot of the times we wish he would just do something else, but he doesn't maybe know what that something else might be. So when in doubt, if he's not going to be successful and you don't feel comfortable rocking something, don't do it. We want to either prevent the rehearsal of the inappropriate from our perspective behavior, and instead redirect this handsome guy onto something we would prefer for down the road. Ready, Zeus? So we'll do a little bit more with some of this loose leash walking. But we may find for Mr. Handsome is, rotating through some skills while there could be like your family members coming home. So maybe as your spouse is coming into the building, into your home, you could go ahead and work some find its. He still doesn't remember he has feet. He sometimes trips. It's hard when you got big, big legs. He's a moose, as you mentioned. So we may find for Mr. Z is if we don't rehearse these skills even with us, how is he going to be able to generalize it onto, let's say, novelty and still be able to be comfortable in that setting too? So just always think to yourselves, am I setting up my handsome guy for success? Or am I by accident maybe setting up everybody for a little bit of a hiccup moment, or maybe sometimes a little bit more of a headache on our end because the puppy still doesn't quite know what to do instead? Nice job. Ready? Let's go. So, but he is maturing quite lovely into a very handsome gentleman. So maybe what we'll do is we'll give Mr. Z a little break from some of this information in this exercise, and maybe we'll try to work a little bit with some relaxation as we throw in some distractions. So we can try to, again, include something novel or distracting happening while he's maybe trying to work on simmering down and taking a breath, and then see how he does with some of those exercises. But very nice job, Handsome Pants. So we'll give him a little tidbit and we'll give him a little break from this exercise.